Good morning, folks. Thank you for coming to our meeting here in beautiful Troy, New Hampshire on a cold winter Saturday morning. My name is Hal Shurtleff, and I am the director and co-founder of Camp Constitution. And I'm going to give a presentation entitled, What is Camp Constitution? About a half hour, 40 minutes long. And we're going to be putting this up on YouTube and probably a few other social media networks. Now, one of the things we do is try to, our major goal is to reacquaint people with this great document called the Constitution. And we do a lot of outreach events, information tables at fairs, like the Cheshire Fair just up the street here, and homeschool shows. And we have a little 10-question quiz. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But it's amazing, the average person, how little they know about the Constitution. And I think that's one of our nation's major problems. I remember during the presidential campaign, people would ask me, oh, do you like Trump? Do you like Rand Paul? Do you like this person or that person? And I'd ask questions, where do you find the job description of the President of the United States? And people look at you like, what do you mean by that? Well, the job description. Everybody has a job description. And I'd say, you don't find it in the New York Times on the Oprah Winfrey Show. You find it in the second Article 2 of the Constitution. Oh, so if the person who's running is in accordance with that job description, then they're probably going to make a good president, right? So, in fact, the president only has about 8 or 9 powers and duties. He's not, or she, if a woman ever gets elected, is not the most powerful man in the free world. That's not part of the job description. Anyway, so we have a lot of fun with this, and the goal is to make people feel stupid. And I mean, you give me a science test, I'm not going to do so well. I'll tell you that right now. But our goal is to help them learn more. Now, the first question is, you can't read it from here, but which amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms? Now, you go to a gun show, we set up tables at gun shows. Everybody at a gun show gets that one right. And the emphasis isn't what gives you the right, because that Second Amendment didn't give it right. You had the right, it protected that right. But from there it goes downhill. You know, the other questions, about who declares war? That one is, you think it's a profound question. Who declares war? That's an awesome power to have. And most overwhelming majority of people that we meet that take this quiz will say the president declares war. And unfortunately, since 1945, when the UN, the Congress unwisely passed the UN Participation Act, and the president, Truman at the time, signed it into law, when the UN Security Council says we're going to send troops somewhere around the world, we send them. So I just want to do that little introduction. So that's some of the things that we're concerned about. There's a picture of last year's camp, which were most widely attended. And this year's camp is going to be in the beautiful Berkshires at the Lakeside Christian Camp. I'll be talking a little bit about that and some of the folks coming here. Here are some photos which we got from their website. It's a beautiful venue. It's a nice mountain on both sides. They got a lake, cabins, rustic cabins, and some modern cabins. They even have wireless. Isn't that cool? Wireless at a camp, you know. And it's right in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, on the Lenox line, right off of Route 20. So you're close to it. You're in a city, but you're still in a lot of woods there. So it's quite nice. And I think we have probably the best lineup of instructors. Now, every year we have some of the same instructors, some of those who have been involved since the camp's founding in 2009. But we like to mix it up a little bit and get some special instructors. And this year, returning actually is Professor Willie Soon, who was really popular. He is probably one of the top climate realists in the world, a professor of atmospheric science at Smithsonian Harvard Institute. And he comes with his whole family, and we really enjoy his company. Mrs. Chris Ann Hall, who's returning, I know she spoke here to a Ringe group not too long, when she was at camp. We like to maximize our instructors, and if we can find engagements outside of camp during the week, we try to do that. Gentleman in the middle is Lord Christopher Monckton from England, and he's somebody, I actually met him back in 08 or 09 at a climate change conference where I actually met Willie Soon. And Willie and the Lord are really good friends, and he's going to be there for the week, and we've already lined up 3 other speaking engagements in the area for him. And then for the first time, Dr. Duke Pesta, who's a good friend of mine, he is perhaps one of the top experts on Common Core. He's a professor of English at the University of Wisconsin in Oshkosh. And we have other instructors too. In fact, it's kind of interesting. We have a man named Michael King, who's with the Massachusetts Family Institute. We have a Pastor Earl Wallace, who is author of a book, The Three-Dimensional Leader. And we have Lord Christopher Monckton. And we have, let's see, so we have an Earl, we have a Lord, we have a King, And I think we have someone else with a royal background. I can't remember who that is. But anyway, so our first camp was held in 2009, and we had, I think, 60 people. And we had one family that was like 10 or 15 people. We're that family. We'd have been pretty lonely. And over the years, we've had people that come as far as Michigan, Florida, the Midwest, and all over New England. So far, I think we've only had one family from Vermont, so we got to wake that state up and get some folks down there. And the camp is a family camp. When some people think of a summer camp, everybody has their own experiences. As one lady said to me, well, my children are too old for your camp. How old? Well, they're 15 and 16. I says, well, why do you think they're too old? Because that's her experience. I said, no, we have all ages. We have little ones and we have older people. So it's a family camp as well as a camp for unaccompanied minors. And if we have some adults that want to give us some of their time and some of their help, you're welcome to come. And I think that makes it unique too, because a lot of camps focus maybe on teenagers or just families, but we have a good mixture of both. And we have programs for the young ones too. We call it Patriot Camp. We initiated that about 4 or 5 years ago. So we have a wonderful program for 5 to 11-year-olds, and we have some great instructors. We have a lady who's a daughter of the American Revolution that comes in for a day or two, and Mrs. Edith Kraft, who runs it, she's a retired school teacher. So we have some really talented people doing that camp. Our motto, I know you can't see it on the slide, I don't think too well, honoring the past, teaching the present, preparing the future. And so we do a lot of history of our great country, morality and freedom, and even recent history. We have World War II veterans that sometimes come to camp and give classes, and we'll probably have a Gulf War veteran there, Greg. Maybe we'll have you give a presentation at some point.
On the role of the saxophone defeating the conspiracy.
That's right. That's work on that. Okay, your PowerPoints. Teaching the present. So it's not just the next generation, but it's this current generation that are already freedom activists to make them more effective freedom activists. And of course, preparing the next generation of liberty and freedom activists. We started off as an unincorporated association, but probably about 6 or 7 years ago, we became a New Hampshire-based charitable trust. So we are not a 501c3, which is all recognized by the IRS, but we have partnered with a 501c3. So if some people need to make a donation and need that tax deduction for IRS purposes, you can do that through us. We have a week-long camp, and we also plan to expand the summer camp program. And we do year-round events too. We have information tables at various venues, homeschool shows, which is probably our best target market, because a lot of people in these circles are interested in these kinds of things. We do county fairs, gun shows, tea party rallies, and we speak at events all the time, and usually we have a table at these events too. We have a publishing arm, which I'll talk about a little bit later, show you some examples. Scribd.com. That is an online social media place it's like a YouTube for documents. So we upload almost all of the material that we publish is available as a free download on Scribd, and also from our website too. We have a YouTube presence. We are on Vimeo, but we don't do a whole lot with that. And right now we're getting over 1,000 views a day. And that's sort of a drop in the bucket, but that's not bad. Imagine speaking to 1,000 people every day, in your travels. That's not too bad. And we're always looking to get new subscribers and new people to share our videos, so we encourage you to do that. And what we have on our channel, we have our classes over the years. We'll have playlist classes of 2017, 16. So you get a lot of meat and potatoes there. And we also videotape programs during the year. Now, was about a week and a half ago, I was up at Concord, New Hampshire, where they were having hearings on a resolution calling for President Trump to give Jerry DeLemus a full pardon. And I won't go into it, but we were there to videotape, and we put that on our channel. We also have a radio. We have Camp Constitution Radio, and we also we convert the audio to YouTube video and put that up on our channel too. A lot of research material. We either have the hard copy or we have it online, and we encourage people if they're doing term papers or doing things and they need research, we may have what you're looking for. We offer a life-changing and definitely a life-affirming experience. We have a lot of people that just look forward to that every year. They've made some great friends. As a parent, I want my children to make good friends, and one of the best places to do that is at our camp. And a lot of the campers, they socialize throughout the year. You know, they fly from Michigan to Rhode Island, and Rhode Island, you know, to Michigan, and what have you, and they become good friends. And that's something you can't put a price tag in. And by the way, the cost of the camp is very, very inexpensive. We pretty much charge what the camp charges. Because we have a lot of folks that realize how important this is. $350 for a full week, that for 14 and over, and under, from 13 to 4, it's $175. That includes the field trips, the materials. It's an awfully good, most camps would charge about twice that. So it's definitely a great program. And our goal, help make current constitutional activists more effective and help to create the next generation. And I tell people that the camp is a highlight of my family. Now, my children are a little older now, but my wife is a counselor. Three of my children are counselors, my son and 2 of my daughters. And I have one, my youngest is 13, and she's a very enthusiastic camper. We've had a lot of great instructors. I mean, we have some of the most talented people in their field, and I won't review every name here. Mrs. Chris Ann Hall, who's still coming and still involved. Sam Blumenfeld. We had a weatherman, Art Horn. Dr. Mildred Jefferson, who was a pioneer in the Right to Life movement, the first black woman to graduate from Harvard Medical School. Dr. Michael Kaufman, who was one of the first to expose Agenda 21 and some of the problems with that. Tom DeWeese, who is another expert on Agenda 21. He travels all over the country. John McManus, who's written numerous books on financial terrorism and books exposing the UN. He's the publisher of the New American and the former president of the John Birch Society. We've had sitting elected officials. We still will have that happen. Reverend Stevie Kraft, who's a regular at camp, he's actually got a theological degree from Harvard University, and I kid him, and you still believe in God? He got out of Harvard. And historians, and just a great group of people. Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America was there last year. This is one of our instructors, Earl Wallace, and one of our camp instructors, Uncle Sam, Fred Polnich, who does Uncle Sam reenactor. He won't be coming this year, but Earl will. Earl's sort of a regular there. And these are pictures of some of the folks, Tom DeWeese, Chris Ann Hall, and that's old Rev Kraft. That was at a homeschool show in Worcester a few years ago. He helps out. In fact, we're leaving here. We're going down to New London, Connecticut to do a radio show tomorrow in the afternoon. And we've become good friends with a lot of radio talk show hosts, and Reverend Kraft's going to be with us, so we're along with Dr. Kishore. Here are some of the classes that we're teaching. And we have to teach some basics, so some of the classes will be similar every year. But then we add things, and we take things out and add them and bring them back, what have you. And this year we're going to do one, and someone recommended a class on the issue of vaccines. And we have a guy who's a top expert in public health, Dr. Kishore, so he's going to do that class. But America's Godly Heritage, those are classes we kind of do every year. But we have different people doing them, so they're coming from different angles. Sometimes it's always good to mix it up a little bit. We have classes on not just the U.S. Constitution, but state constitutions. There are some people say, what? You mean we have a state? Yeah, you have a state constitution. In fact, here in New Hampshire, it's the second oldest. Massachusetts is the oldest operating constitution in the world. And people say, oh, well, our founders, they're all a bunch of deists, so they're all progressive freethinkers, atheists. Really? Read those documents. They talk about the great architect of the universe, morality and piety. I don't think they were free-thinking progressive liberals. No way. The Midnight Rider, Paul Revere, and over the years we've actually visited Concord, Lexington, and followed some of the Paul Revere's sites. Economics. Now, when you hear economics, the first thing you do is you want to go to sleep. It's boring, but we don't teach it that way. We teach it in an exciting manner. You know, we show them what silver coins used to look like and what real money is and so forth. So they actually hold gold and silver coins. And we have a little, when I taught the class, I have a silver dollar and I drop it, and it makes a sound, right? And then you have a paper dollar. I said, that's why we call it sound money. You see, it makes a sound when you drop it. So, and I tell people that when they leave our camp, they're going to know more about the Constitution than a lot of postgraduates in history and in the Constitution. Because at law schools, they teach them how a judge or the Supreme Court applied the Constitution to that particular case. Or I should say how they twisted and tortured the Constitution. They don't teach them about the basic Constitution. And that's what we do. And we've had law professors tell us that, and a lot of lawyers that tell us these things. So it's not we're just saying this off the cuff. We talk about, we give a class on creationism versus evolution. We take the creationism side, but we just kind of refute some of the claims of evolutionists. And our camp is made up of people, most people of faith from all denominations, so it's not a Baptist camp, it's not a Pentecostal camp, it's not a Catholic camp. We welcome people from all these different groups, and we respect, obviously respect that. We talk about the conspiracy. We don't go into crazy theories. We don't believe in reptilian shapeshifters, but we go into some of these organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations, the influence they have. It was interesting too. It's so open now that it's hard to say that doing things in secret. David Rockefeller, who passed away not too long ago, he wrote his autobiography, I think it was in 04 or 05, and he said right in his book that he's part of this cabal. He admitted to be part of this cabal to build a one world order, and he's proud of it. So yeah, I'll tend to believe him when he says that, when he's confessing like that. For some reason, CNN didn't talk about this, and then when the book came out, or MSNBC, or even some of the Rush Limbaugh types. The right to keep and bear arms, that's a very important issue, and we do a lot with that over the years. We've taught classes on that. And a couple of years we've had gun safety classes we may do as workshops. We may do that again. That was thanks to Larry's friend that let us use his little range near our camp. We also teach classes on leadership. You can have all the facts in the world and all the knowledge in the world. You can be the smartest person on these issues, but if you're not doing anything with this information, what's the point? How to be a constitutional activist. And we also, this is a great class on what a real militia is. There's this misconception that a bunch of pot-bellied middle-aged guys like me, running around the woods with their ARs is a militia. Well, it's not. And we go over the difference, and the difference between National Guard. That's sort of an advanced class. And we have a timeline of U.S. history. Now, a lot of times you don't really get a concept of time. I'll say, did George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, did they know each other? Well, does it really matter? Of course it matters, because there's a concept, a timeline of history. And I think it makes it easier to learn, too. Some of the activity outside of the classes, we're not just all a bunch of gifted athletes. We have and you can be a gifted athlete and a nerd at the same time, a computer nerd. We have chess tournaments, basketball, volleyball, softball, and wiffle ball. In fact, our camp here, they have a replica Green Monster wiffle ball field. I'm looking forward to that. We don't have an indoor rock climbing wall, but we have a outdoor confidence course. Canoeing, hiking, fishing, swimming. Yeah, ballroom dancing, and that was initiated by the campers. I don't know, if I was a teenager, I'd rather be out in the lake. I don't know, swimming in the hot summer, but I don't know, some of them prefer that. We have a little optional workshop for that. We have a camp newspaper, so every night, right after campfire, the campers will get the daily schedule in the camp newspaper, the results of the room inspection, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, interviews of some of the instructors, little things that the campers may write, poetry, what have you. And we actually make those newspapers available on our website too when the camp's over. And we have, of course, a campfire. And at our campfire, it's interesting. These are the things we don't want. Campers don't walk around with these devices. They can talk to their parents. If their parents aren't with them, they can, we'll make arrangements. You can, keep in touch. Update your Facebook page. But you hand these to your counselor, and they'll determine, when you can use your phone. So there's a withdrawal symptom. After after a day or so, you're not used to having their, you need to check. But after a day or two, they're over and they're having fun, and they're actually reading at books, and they're out there, doing creative things. And at Campfire, we have skits. We'll do poetry reciting. Some campers are very talented. They'll bring your instrument. Now, one year we had a guy brought a piano. We're not set up to have a big old piano at the campfire, but so we do a lot of fun things like that. And after a few days, they really get into it. They really look forward to the campfire. We had a lot of experience. Now, I've been involved with camp since 1990. Our program director is a retired school teacher who's also been involved with camp since 2000. Our head counselor comes all the way from Erie, Pennsylvania. And he's been involved at camp since 1976, and he's still got a lot of gas in the tank. And we are actually training younger people to take over. It's not like we're just a bunch of old people, and when we're gone, that's it. We have a program director in training, and there are people. Someone's going to take my shoes, but hopefully I still get about 20 or 30 years left. I hope, God willing. We have counselors who have experience. Most of the counselors are parents. We have junior counselors, and we want to do this because, once you're no longer of camp age, 17, 18 years old, we don't want to just say, okay, we'll see you when you're married and have children. No, we want you involved. So they'll help out with the program too. And we have a camp nurse, a doctor, a lifeguard, and a recreational director, all with experience. So here's what a daily schedule looks like, and we pretty much stays the same regardless of where the camp is. 6:30 is an optional run or swim. They call it the polar bear swim, but you know, when it's July or August, it's not that cold to go in the lake. Wake up is at 7. We have a morning devotion, flag raising, we learn flag etiquette, and we recite, we pray, and then we recite the preamble of the Constitution. And by the end of camp, everybody at least can recite the preamble by memory. Breakfast at 8 o'clock. We have 3 classes in the morning. Each class is 50 minutes, and we're sticklers for that, because there's only so much you can learn, you know, at one time. And some classes you go on for 5 hours, but we don't do that. And there's plenty of time in between to stretch your legs, recreation, 10 or 15 minute breaks. And during the morning, we have also room inspection. And we do have policies about conduct and dress codes and such. We do that because if you don't, it's a little chaotic. And after a day or two, when they realize that we stick to them, the campers they like it. And well, you need a sense of order at our camp. And we have room inspections. Now we're looking for cleanliness, that's a minimum thing, but we're also looking for themes. Are they learning anything? And so they'll have, you know, patriotic themes, Christian themes, and the girls tend to be more creative than the guys, by the way, at that age, and even probably older. And they have an award at the end of the week. The cabin that does the best gets free pizza on our pizza night, the last full day of camp. And then we have, of course, we have lunch. In the afternoon, we have some organized recreational activities. On Wednesday, we'll have a all-day field trip from after breakfast till dinner time. This year, we're planning to go to the Battle of Bennington, the battle site. And I've got a friend of mine who's an expert on that particular place. He's going to do a tour. And we have a couple of optional trips. Mount Greylock, which is not too far from us, the largest elevation. And unlike Mount Monadnock, where there aren't any roads, you know, it's a little bit of a hike. Mount Greylock, there's a road that goes all the way to the top. So if anyone gets stuck, we just drive them down. It'd be great. And then, of course, you have swimming and all the great activities, swimming and boating and canoeing and all these great things. Dinner, and then we usually have 2 classes in the evening. I think at all-day field trip, we cut a class. We only have 1 class in the evening. And then flag lowering, and we do that to hold it in a respectful way. And then we have campfire. We tell people, bring your flashlight and mosquito repellent. They will be out biting. Late night snack, and we distribute the camp newspaper, and then we have in cabins, and theoretically lights out at 11. So at least we do our best. We want to get them 8 hours sleep. I don't get 8 hours sleep at camp. I'm lucky to get 4 hours, and it takes a little while to recuperate from a good camp. So these are just some of the optional things: a hike, Battle of Bennington. The last day, full day of camp, which would be Friday, we do a community outreach. We go out with not the whole camp, but maybe 20 or so campers and some staff, and we distribute constitutions to business people or what have you, and some other things, maybe issue-related things. And it's interesting, the great results we get, you know, when older people see young people handing them constitutions. It doesn't happen too often. Usually if a young person knocks at your door, comes to your place of business, with a clipboard, it's always for Greenpeace or to promote more government. It's never to promote less government, and they get paid $1 a signature or whatever they get. So that's a little different, and the influence that they have, if they just harness that, is amazing. Here's a picture of some of our musket training. Now, people will say, oh my goodness, no protection, you fire muskets. Well, we weren't actually firing the musket balls, just the powder. And this is our good friend Garrett Lear, who has come to camp over the years. And he's a 6'7" in his stocking feet. And he dresses up in the colonial outfits. He doesn't buy his costumes that I party by. He gets them tailor-made. That's the real deal you're looking at. And an operating musket. And over the years, we had some great field trips. This is the grandson of Reverend Kraft and his wife Edith, Concord and Lexington. So we introduced them to not just at the camp, but also historic history around the area. And we're just rich in history. Mount Monadnock is, I think, the 2nd most hiked mountain in the world. That's what they tell me. It used to be the most hiked. It's not the highest, thankfully. It's, you know, it's not 30,000 feet, and we would never get take the whole week. Evening campfires you see here, and again, it's a highlight of camp, swimming and boating. I like this. After the 2nd or 3rd day, they're starting to learn things, and one of the signs on the door says, "Come back with a warrant." Which amendment is that, everybody? You know, which amendment deals with illegal searches, no illegal search and seizure?
Fourth Amendment.
Fourth Amendment, thank you. That's right. Okay, so this is just some field, I'll just save a little time, I won't review all of it, but we've taken field trips, state houses, historical spots, up Bunker Hill Monument, Tea Party Museum in Boston, some great places, and even local historical societies, which are great treasures. A lot of people, they're kind of overlooked. Some of them are just open one day a week, but some of them are great places to learn things. So here's some of the year-round activity. I mentioned YouTube, and we do encourage you to check us out on YouTube, our Facebook page, Camp Constitution, our radio show, and we also appear as guests on radio shows around the region. Information tables, homeschool shows, even parade floats. We hope to be in a parade in Pittsfield, July 4th, Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Website, we at campconstitution.net, and I'll be talking about some of the great resources. The Sam Blumenfeld Archives, Camp Constitution Press. We have a Speakers Bureau, which we started in the fall of 2016. And we've done dozens of, just last year, we've had dozens of engagements from, from Presque Isle, Maine, all the way to Grand Rapids, Michigan. So we're kind of expanding a little bit here. And we've done some special projects. Camp Constitution News or media attends and reports on events. Now, we're not like a cutting-edge breaking stories, but we'll show up at different events and, videotape them, what have you. We've done special projects, which I really won't go into too much, and people need someone to show up and videotape something or interview someone and take pictures. We had a great time at the National Association of Gun Rights. The Vice President testified at a hearing there just last year in New Hampshire. It was about this time in February, early February, and he needs someone to take his picture, handing petitions. I said, I'll go up there and do that, and they gave me a couple of nice jackets and shirts. It was a good time. And I also interviewed him on a couple of important issues too, unrelated to not directly related to the Second Amendment. And we actually are participating and will be credited in a documentary on Dr. Kishore called Hero in America, which is supposed to be released this spring, 2018. There's our YouTube, that's our screenshot of our YouTube channel. That's our presence at a homeschool show. That happens to be in Mass Hope in central Worcester, Massachusetts. And we have a 10-question quiz, and we have a lot of fun. And it's not just about recruiting people for camp, but it's reaching out to people, not just on the Constitution, but the threats to the Constitution. We have information on Common Core and how to teach your children how to read, using phonics and other great things. So let me get into the Sam Blumenfeld Archives a little bit. Sam was a dear friend of ours. He actually spoke here, it's one of his, about 3 years ago. He died in June of 2015. He had just turned 89. I would say he was one of the pioneers of the modern homeschool movement. And when he passed away, he willed his library to me. And I said to him on his deathbed that, we're going to do our best at Camp Constitution to make sure his important work will still influence generations yet unborn. Sam told me that, he told me 20 years ago that he's going to do this till he drops. And on his deathbed, he's selling his book and autographing and giving some away. He was right. Up until Thursday or Friday, 2 days before he died, he was no longer cognizant. He was out there fighting the good fight. Well, last year, our archives, which is you find on our website, we got over 2 million views. Now, that doesn't mean 2 million people. It means one person can view 100 things, but still a lot of people are using it. Alpha Phonics, which is, I think, is the most important work, which is simplest. It was a little workbook on how to teach people how to read. My wife and I use it to teach all of our children, and they're all excellent readers. All 128 lessons, as well as the book itself, is available. It's a free download. All his monthly newsletters, hundreds of his speeches and audio and video. You probably get about 2 or 3 weeks worth of audio, 24 hours. You just play it constantly. They can all download it free of charge. His correspondence, he knew a lot of world leaders, people like Mose Shombay, and he was involved with a lot of organizations, Friends of Algeria, Friends of Katanga. So he also was involved with a group called Jewish Society of Americanists, and this may be the only place to get their newsletters and their various material and information. Our Speakers Bureau, just mentioned a few. Dr. Kishore, who's with us today, Reverend Kraft, Catherine White, who's an expert on the Constitution, and me, and Tom DeWeese, Earl Wallace, and we actually have an Episcopal priest who talks about Sharia law. He's an expert on that. And we have another man who talks about life under Sharia law, because he had lived under Sharia law in the Sudan. And he'll be at our camp this year, Pastor William Levy. Here's some of the books, Camp Constitution Press. This one is kind of interesting. It was written in 1804 by the pastor of the Congregational Church in Rindge, New Hampshire, where we visited the Historical Society, and we put it back in print. I think it was a fascinating account of the Illuminati, not some crazy thing, but a real organization. Then we published things over the years. Some things we reprinted, some things we published on our own. This was a nice little book written by a dear friend of mine who passed away last year. She and Charlotte Isabet founded a group in Maine called Gardens of Education in Maine back in the 70s, and this is her memoirs. And this one, we put this in print. This is a man who was at that infamous meeting at Jekyll Island that gave us a Federal Reserve Bank. And it was that one chapter where he talked about his experiences, that they were secretive and as furtive as any conspirator. And one of our camp supporters said, hell, if you could find that, we'll pay to reprint it. And it took me about 4 years, and I finally got my hands on it. So it's a fascinating story. It's all available as a free download too. We're getting in the media. We get on radio shows. A lot of times our news releases will become stories. Reporters show up at our events. But this past August, August of 2017, I applied to get a permit to raise the Christian flag in Boston. There's like a called public access flagpole in City Hall Plaza. 5 years ago, we raised the Gadsden flag, you know, the yellow flag with a "Don't tread on me," no trouble. That we had a little ceremony, had a few people speak. Well, after about a month, usually you get 10 days, so it was 2 or 3 weeks. Finally, I got an official response. Nope, separation of church state. The First Amendment doesn't allow us. Here is the city, a sanctuary city, violating the Constitution there. But when it comes to the First Amendment, they're constitutional purists. Well, really, the Constitution says nothing about flying a Christian flag on a property for a couple of days. So anyway, I did a news release mentioning that we've been denied this, and I think we can win this in a court of public opinion. And someone recommended that I get a hold of Liberty Counsel, which is an organization that defends people, groups like ours, pro bono. And they took the case. They have not filed the suit as of today is January 20th, 2018, but it's still in the process. But it made the front page of the Boston Herald, which is the second biggest paper in New England. There was a follow-up story and an editorial defending us, and it made about 60 other news sources around the country. It made WorldNet Daily and AOL Online, and many others. And as a result of that, I was able to get on the David Knight show, The Real News with David Knight, InfoWars, and that goes, I don't know how many people listen to that, on radio and on YouTube. And also Michael Rivero's show, What Really Happened. So that was some national exposure we got, and it was good exposure, and we hope to continue that. And so I'm going to about wrap it up. So this is a statistic that I heard, I think it's an accurate statistic, that 80% of voters under the age of 30 either supported Bernie Sanders or Hillary Clinton. Now, there's two ways to solve that problem, because Bernie is an avowed socialist. If you call someone a socialist, sometimes they get offended with you. He'd say thank you. That's what he is. He believes in an all-powerful central government. And Hillary, well, we know about Hillary. I prefer Bernie over Hillary if I had to pick between the two. Hillary was a hardcore, dedicated advocate of big government, as well as other things that I won't get into. So there are two ways to solve this problem. One of them is not possible. That's to live forever and never die, so we can always vote. And so the other way is to get that 80% down to a more manageable level, like 1% or 0. So how do we do that? We reach out to young people, because they're not getting the information that we give them at the camp. They're not getting that in their public schools. They're getting just the opposite. And every year you hear more of these horrible stories every day. So how to solve that problem? And people our age will say, what are we going to do when these people come to age? Well, that's part of our job, and that's why we need your help. If you're watching us on YouTube or here in the audience, we need help. We're just a small entity, but we're growing and we're reaching out. I mean, 75,000 downloads of Sam Blumenfeld's Alpha Phonics. I want to believe that these people are all new to this. That's more than 3 divisions, right? It's 20, right? So that's almost 4 divisions, right, of informed patriots that we hope to generate, right? We know that Common Core is sort of the nail on the coffin of public school. Even a lot of private schools, even some Christian schools have adopted Common Core. And I don't have to say that morality is in decline. I don't think I have to make a case for that. So some of our goals, you know what a vision is? A vision is a goal without money. You see, you can have a vision, but we have plans. That means we have the money. We had a plan to have a full-time director. That's me. And that became possible with the generosity of our supporters and a lot of faith in God, because we don't have enough resources to say, oh, you're all set now for the last 5 years. We're kind of a shoestring budget. But we want to start other camps around the country. We actually have a lady in California that wants to start something. She's very interested. We have some interest in Michigan and Ohio, and we're already looking into camps in that area. If not this year, hopefully next year. We want to have some like a weekend camp, maybe down in South Jersey. We've already checked that place out, and a lot of people just want us there. They love it. They want us there. And we would like to have our own camp, so it's sort of our own culture. But if there are groups that say, look, we may do things a little differently, but can you help us? We'll be more than happy to come out there and give some advice and what have you. Because there's a lot of details. It's doable, but there's a lot of details. You don't just show up for a week and, what do you do now? Bring a mosquito repellent. I mean, there's a lot of things that go on to make this camp successful. We'd like to have a year-round program. That's the vision. That's not a goal, it's a vision. We'd like to have our own facility. And we got the full-time director, but we'd like to increase that and have more people involved. I'm going to sort of skip to starting a new camp. And if there's anyone who's interested, who's watching this, get a hold of me, and on the phone, I'll meet you in person, and I can give you some advice. So we're making a difference. All the things we do, is it really important? Are we doing anything that's worth your support? And I'd say yes, without any hesitation. Since 2009, we've distributed over 11,000 copies of the Constitution. On the way here, I stopped off at the Ridge Library, and they asked us to sponsor Constitution, so we just make them available there. Now, anybody can buy, you can get 1,000 Constitutions and drop them out of an airplane. Well, what good does it do? We put instruction behind those Constitutions too. We've made a direct impact on the hundreds of young people and their families. We want to make that thousands, but we know at least hundreds. We've helped to stop Agenda 21 policies in New Hampshire and Maine, and I don't want to go into all the details because that's a presentation in itself. In fact, we do have a video on that. Go to our YouTube channel. It was August of last year. I did a presentation on the subject, and I go into some of the details. We've helped to oppose an Article 5 convention. We are very much opponents of that. There's some well-intentioned people that support one, but we have made an excellent case to stop it. And we've actually brought a speaker in last January in New Hampshire and Maine and spoke. We had 2 in-studio radio interviews. We had luncheons with elected officials and 4 or 5 evening presentations. We've helped to expose Common Core in the inner cities. We've also helped to expose Agenda 21 in the inner cities. See, it's either rural areas and inner cities. And that's a great story in itself. Again, I don't have time to go into that. And our YouTube channel, over 400,000, that was about a week ago. We're up to about 1,500 views. Our archives are being utilized by people all over the world, mainly in the United States. And I mentioned earlier, over 75,000 copies of Alphaphonics. And we're getting many more downloads of his important material. Our presence at homeschool shows and other venues help to bring an understanding to attendees on a variety of issues, including Common Core, climate change hoax, the dangers of an Article 5 convention, the UN, and a better understanding of the U.S. Constitution. What can you do? Now, this is sort of a call to action. Promote the camp program. Let people know that we exist. Share this information in your circles. If you have an email list, email if you see this video, send it to people, put it out in your YouTube, your Facebook pages and your other social media, Twitter or what have you. Become a camp sponsor. If you go to our sponsors page, you'll see some businesses and some nonprofits. And some of these people actually volunteer. They make signs. I don't know if you can get that sign in the. Instead of giving us money, they make signs, or they'll do something to that effect. But for $100 a year, your business or nonprofit would be listed as a sponsor. Now, anyone who participates in camp gets their business on here as a courtesy if they want. And you can actually do that through our PayPal account, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Offer your talent, time, and treasure. Be a counselor, start a camp in your area. host a meeting like this in your neighborhood, at your local library, even in your living room, or your homeschool group, or your Rotary Club, okay? Volunteer at camp, and I mentioned I host a speaker. We have such great array of speakers, and it's almost like a finder. It's not like we have some set fees. You make arrangements, and most people, hey, cover our travel expenses, pass the hat, and we're there. That's what we're trying. We got to get the word out. None of this $10,000 honorarium, first class airfare, and put us in a 5-star hotel, and don't wake us till noontime. That's not how we operate. So how can you help us, support us financially? Well, some people have made annual contributions. One time, here's a check, and every January we'll send it. The best way is through our PayPal account. We can do a monthly donation, even as little as $5 a month. $5 is what, 2 cups of coffee, in some places 1 cup of coffee. But if you get 1,000 people doing $5, that's a lot. $10, some people do 50, a few people do 100, what have you. But anything can help, and it is a tax deductible since we're a charitable entity, so it shouldn't be an issue. And again, have a business or a nonprofit, be a camp sponsor. Now here's a talk show host. She doesn't pay for this, but she gives us time on her show and promotes our camp. So in lieu of that, she actually wants to start a school down in Connecticut and wants to hire me as the headmaster. Well, I don't know. I already got a job, but we'll see. And there's a company, Conservative Chick Chat. These are 3 ladies in Nashua, New Hampshire. They're on the air, WSMN. And I'm a guest on there, 3 or 4 times a year, and so we put their information on our website. So let's keep the campfires going, and it'll end by saying we're very good friends of the man who used to own the Uncle Sam house in Mason, New Hampshire. That we did this to honor him. Help us reach out to more people, and thank you for attending. And if you want more information, just go to our website, campconstitution.net, and you can contact me directly through that. So with that, I want to thank you, and God bless.